Columbus. The next thing we love.
Moments away from the final event of the 2019 Arnold Strongman Classic from the Battelle Grand Ballroom in Columbus, Ohio. I'm Sean Woodland alongside Dr. Bill Crawford. Coming up, the former champions of the Arnold Strongman Classic gathered in one spot for this crowd that is awaiting to watch the fifth and final event of this strongman competition.
Arnold himself just hosted a fantastic event a few weeks ago in Santa Monica.
We are through 4 of 5 events. Hafthor Bjornsson and Martins Lisis are the only 2 men alive for the championship, with Bjornsson having a 6-point lead over Lisis. Jerry Pritchett in 9th place has withdrawn from the competition, so he is now out. Alexei Novikov, who was held out of event number 4, the Austrian Oak, because he was being checked by the medical staff due to an injury, has gotten clearance. He is back in the competition, so that is good news for the rookie out of the Ukraine. Here are the champions who are about to take the stage. 2 of them are currently competing. That's Hafthor Bjornsson, who is looking for his 2nd straight Arnold Strongman Championship, and Brian Shaw, who has won 3 Arnold Classics. But you want to talk about a Mount Rushmore of strongman names. This is it.
Yes, only 8 champions in the past. 8 of those championships have been gained by Zydrunas Savickas, arguably one of the greatest strongmen who ever lived. Also rounded out with Brian Shaw, who's in that class with 3 wins. Now Hafthor Bjornsson with 1 win, and several others with 1 win. But this is an impressive group of athletes. Many of them also world's strongest men, competitors and winners as well.
Quite the impressive list of athletes. Here's what is on the line in the 2019 Arnold Strongman Classic. Prize money awarded to all the competitors, and the person who wins this competition will get $72,000.
Proper introduction. Wow, I kind of spoiled it. So what we're doing this year to honor the great Terry Todd, we have assembled every previous winner of the Arnold Sports Classic Strongman Championship. We have the greatest strongmen in history, and you saw the first one. The man who won the inaugural Arnold Strongman back in 2002. He's been my co-host all weekend. He's the WWE Hall of Fame. Twice he represented America, going to the Olympics as a U.S. weightlifter. And he is on stage with me all night long. Give it up for my man, the legendary Mark Henry. Next up, I know, you belong out here. Next up, this man didn't win it once, he didn't win it twice. He won it 8 times. He is one of the greatest strongmen in history, Zydrunas Savickas. A legendary American. You've heard this name so long. He's here with his daughter, and he's been having a tremendous time. Let him hear it, ladies and gentlemen, Derek Poundstone. Talk about an appropriate last name. And then a man who's won it 3 times. This year is his 10th time competing for you people. He's one of the great champions. He's from my home state of Colorado. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Shaw. Now, unfortunately, there is one champion who can't be with us. He passed away, but we'd still love you all to honor his memory. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Jenkins. And last night, if you were here, what I love about these strongmen is the support, because the governor brought out Miles Taylor, a kid with cerebral palsy, to do some lifts. Now, helping him load the weights were Mark Henry and this other champion, Vytautas Lalas, truly embodying the spirit of strongman. And the final champion here, the man who in just a few minutes will be competing for another title. He is one of the strongest men in history. He's known as the Mountain. From Iceland, welcome, Hafthor Julius Bjornsson! These are the strongmen champions throughout history. Two of them will be competing tonight, but we have a little video that shows you just what this is all about. Please take a look.
Are you ready for the strongest men in the world? They're the biggest, the baddest, one of the most athletic big men on the planet will be competing here today. And we are looking forward to a show. Impressive.
Heila didn't break a sweat there.
Boom! Like nothing.
A strong first lift out of Brian Shaw. A record-breaking lift on the line for the Mountain.
Yes! And like nothing.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time. This is the Husafell Stone Carrier.
And he did it!
First place.
We are set for the final event of the 2019 Arnold Strongman Classic from the Battelle Grand Ballroom in Columbus, Ohio. I'm Sean Woodland with Dr. Bill Crawford. This is how we got here over these past 2 days of competition. The first day all about this man, Hafthor Bjornsson, starting off in record fashion. 1,045 pounds on his second attempt to beat the mark that he set last year by 4 pounds, and then the Mountain goes for the big one, 1,105 pounds. Can't quite get it, but he does win the event and locks up 10 points in the process. Event number 2, the Husafell Stone Carry, more of the same from Bjornsson. 2 for 2, winning both events on day number 1, and it looked like he would run away with it, but then Martins Licis showing up, pushing the Wheel of Pain 119 feet 9 inches, and Bjornsson was the only man who might be able to track him down and looked like he might be able to do that, but Bjornsson comes up 6 inches shy And Martins Licis gets his first win of the competition. Event for the Austrian Oak, Licis and Bjornsson, 2 of 4 men to lift the oak up and over their heads 2 times. It was a 4-way tie for the event win. This is where we stand coming into the final event. Hafthor Bjornsson with a 6-point lead over Martins Licis. Licis is going to have to win this event and probably get a lot of help if he wants to jump Hafthor Bjornsson and win the Arnold Strongman Classic. Event number 5 is the stone to shoulder, 410 pounds. They have 2.5 minutes to bring this from the ground to their shoulder. And when you're dealing with an odd object like this, there are a lot of keys you need to keep in mind.
Yes, first is reading the stone. You've got to be able to get the balance points, get your hands under the stone, and lift it off the ground and get it into a good position. In other words, get it up at least to your lap. And then the second point is that you need to have a position that you can lift it up to your shoulder. That's the point of this, is stone to shoulder. So turning the stone any way that you need to, feeling the balance of the stone, and then getting it up on your shoulder. The point about a natural stone is that it's not made to be lifted. It's just taken from nature, and it's not a barbell, so it's got its own idiosyncrasies, and you've got to go with what it gives you.
And this is the famous Ode Haugen tombstone. And last year, Maciej Kieloszkowski put on a show with this thing. And Bill, we were talking about this in Santa Monica. That was one of the most impressive things that you said you have seen in the strongman competition.
Yes, after that unbelievable performance, I asked Terry Todd himself, what do you think? And he said, I've never seen anything like that. And I think everyone who was there agreed. He got that stone to his shoulder 4 times when the second-place finisher was only 1 time. And he did it in convincing fashion. He's been training hard to continue with that tradition that he's created for himself as a specialist in this event.
Kieloszkowski is definitely someone we will be keeping an eye on in this event. But remember, this is basically a 2-person race for the championship with Hafthor Bjornsson and Martins Licis, the only 2 men in contention to win the title of the 2019 Arnold Strongman Classic Champion.
But I must say that this is a lot of street cred for these athletes. They have a lot of pride in their craft and what they do. They want to make sure that they finish very strong. And this is a very primal event that shows off a strong man's ability to adapt to an unusual object.
Now, other than Kieloszkowski, who are some athletes here in the field who should do well in this?
Well, Licis actually tied Kieloszkowski on the stone shoulder, but that was an Atlas stone. Mm-hmm. He was able to roll it up. There's a lot of tacky involved.
That was in Santa Monica.
That was in Santa Monica, the 2019, just a few weeks ago. But this is a different object. And Hafthor is an Icelander, and he's been training really hard with this. I have to say that Novikov showed us a little bit more with the natural stone with his carry. So odd objects and events that have a little bit of strength endurance, he's excelled in.
At the beginning of the day, we were actually talking as if Hafthor had a really good chance to win every single event. That has never happened. That was right before the Wheel of Pain. That's his only second-place finish so far in the competition. He tied for first with 3 other athletes in the Austrian Oak. But regardless, so far, this is one of the most dominant performances that we have seen in this competition.
Absolutely. Just 6 inches separated him from the other win with the Wheel of Pain. And the others he's in first place or tied for first place. Such a dominant lead.
And that's a look at Ode Haugen, who is the owner of that stone that rests at center stage. The 5th and final event. Haugen taking a seat. Now, Martins Licis is the only man who has a mathematical chance of catching Hafthor Bjornsson. And he is someone who likes to build momentum, and he has certainly done that here in this competition. Back-to-back first-place finishes in the Wheel of Pain and then the Austrian Oak.
Absolutely. What he does is he stays in the events. He doesn't let the leaders get too far ahead of him. He's strong in every event, and he doesn't let his inconsistencies get in his way.
Alexei Novikov is up first, and if you are just joining us, he missed the prior event because he was being checked out by the medical staff because of an injury. They had to clear him before he was allowed back in the competition. And he has had an impressive performance here as well. Novikov making his first ever appearance at the Arnold Strongman Classic. He won the amateur competition last year, he is just 23 years old, and what we have seen from this kid would indicate that he has a very bright future ahead of him.
Yes. He's just cleaning the stone off with this cloth that's got a little bit of pitch on it, but it's the bit tacky is not allowed to be used. At this point, I'm not going to count him out on any event because he's shown us a lot.
You will have 2.5 minutes to bring that stone from the ground to his shoulder as many times as he can.
Notice the shirts that the athletes are wearing. They have sticky on the front. They're gripping shirts for stone lifting.
You can see.
We will only be counting full repetitions here on the score. They get 1 point for bringing it to their laps, and then they will get 2 points to getting it to their torso.
This kid just 300 pounds.
And now 2 points.
410 pounds. Fighting to get it to his shoulder. You want to see it get up?
And now trying to get it to his shoulder. Alexei Novikov struggling with the stone. Almost had it, and he will have to drop it. But he has 2 points, and he cannot re-earn those 2 points.
That was very impressive.
That is 2 points. The only way to get more points now to get it onto the shoulder. And
so this weighs more than 100 pounds on his body weight.
An impressive opening effort for Alexei Novikov. He almost had that stone to his shoulder. And you wonder, had he not been held out of that prior event, we don't know what he would have done with the Austrian Oak, but he might be in contention for one of the top 3 spots at this point.
Absolutely.
Here's his second attempt. He has 2 points already.
Now with that first attempt, he got to feel the stone. Got a better approach.
Bounce it. There you go.
Novikov getting some coaching from Mark Henry, who's doing the public address announcing on the stage, and just can't bring it to his shoulder.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's heavily constructed. Rogue makes the best equipment in the world.
Remember, 2.5 minutes for him to do as many reps as possible.
We have not had it roll out to the floor yet.
This stone does want to roll away from you. Notice how it's very smooth as well.
And you can see the battle.
Alexei Novikov is a good mixture of brains and brawn. He has a master's degree in international economics, and he works as a business and financial advisor when he's not training and competing.
For Alexei Novikov, this rookie from Ukraine.
Still trying to get that stone to the shoulder for the first time, and this is his third attempt.
He's using a technique we'd call a top roll. So he's getting it roughly to his knees, and he's rolling it back. Great effort, though.
And he's going to call it, and he will have 2 points for getting that stone to his torso. So not the finish he wanted here in the final event, but still overall an impressive performance in the 4 events in which we got to see him compete.
He got it up in good position. He just needs to roll it a little bit. He looks like he was going for his left shoulder. Maybe if he dropped that left hand, or go to his right shoulder, maybe if he dropped that left hand a little more, he could have gotten it up onto his shoulder. That sounds easy, but this is an unbelievable event.
Remember, that's 409 pounds, 186 kilos. Here's Maciej Belšak out of Slovenia. His best finish, 4th place in the Wheel of Pain. That was the 3rd of these 5 events. That was contested earlier today. Belšak looking to improve on his 2018 finish at the Arnold Strongman Classic. He took 6th place overall at that event.
If I remember correctly, last year he got the stones to his shoulder, but it rolled backwards and over his shoulder. He can get this onto his shoulder.
Magnus Magnuson is the head judge. He's at the bottom left hand of your screen. He needs to give the athletes a signal in order for them to drop it for the rep to count. And Belšak making his way to the shoulder.
Looks like he's got it.
And he did get the signal from Magnus Magnuson as you saw him extend his free hand and show control. So 1 rep so far for Maciej Belšak. Great start.
You know, he was waiting from last year when he had it up to his shoulder and it rolled off the back. He's so close. He's got it now. One thing about these historic implements, once they start to be seen in competition after competition, it's like a notch in your belt if you could say, I've shouldered that stone or I've pressed that log. This is also a grip component. We talk about the different components of strongman. being strength endurance, also being static event, also being grip event. This actually embodies all three. You have to have a great grip to get the stone to your lap and up to your body. It's an endurance event that you have to actually use time to get it up to your shoulder, and it's also a static event that you're standing on your feet. This is a great event.
And Belshock is going to give this one more run. He had one good lift.
I also noticed that he's wearing lifting shoes. Last year, I don't believe he was wearing lifting shoes in that rock, and the stone pulled when he pulled it back, and it went over the back of his shoulder. I bet he calculated that bit into his scheme this time as well.
And now Belshock just having trouble finding a grip on this thing. It's just each attempt takes so much out of you.
Yes, well, what happens is, notice how he really struggled to get it up to his knees, and then he could rock it back. This is a grip issue now. Think about it. They've been competing all weekend. These guys are showing a little bit of fatigue. And once your grip is gone, it's gone.
And regardless how you read it, if you read it correctly, if you don't have the grip, you're just not going to pick that thing up.
Correctly.
There's a reason that you save the hardest things for last.
15 seconds.
Final seconds now is about 15 seconds to go for Belshock. And after a successful lift, he's had trouble just getting it to his lap. And he is done. So one good repetition for Matjaž Belshock as he closes out his 2019 Arnold Strongman Classic.
That's the second best anyone's ever done with this stone. Getting one rep is a huge accomplishment. Rocked it up. He's been training. Got his leverage underneath it, put his hand out, got clearance to put it down. Okay.
Here's the man we've wanted to see get his hands on this stone. Matjaž Kaliszkowski, tied for first, one of the four men to put the Austrian oak over his head twice in the last event. And last year, he put on a show with the Oudhaugen tombstone.
Yes, he did. He's actually been shouldering a stone that weighs 485 pounds.
This is his first attempt, and he just rips that off the ground.
Should be looked at as somebody that does magic because he makes it look so easy.
He's feeling the pressure of being able to perform on this event because he did such a great thing last year with this stone.
And there is one rep for Kaliszkowski. If he breaks his own record of 4 repetitions, he'll walk away with $5,000. One good repetition down for Kaliszkowski. Here's his second attempt.
He just comes right off. Wow.
And that will be 2, and he barely looks taxed.
He's read this stone. He knows exactly what he's going to do, and then he gets the body position to get it up to the top of the chest, hitches his shoulders and his hips together, and gets under that stone.
Third attempt for Kaliszkowski.
This also requires tremendous upper body strength. A lot of shoulder strength that people don't understand shouldering a stone, because from here you've got to be able to hold it close to the body and then push it up.
And that will be 3 good reps for Matjaž Kaliszkowski. And he still has a minute to go. Remember, he has the record. It was 4, and he did it last year.
Okay, we're going to watch again this next attempt. This will tie his best. He's going to get his hands on it. He's going to push his feet down, get it to his lap. He's got that right hand in a great position to hold on to the stone.
And Kaliszkowski once again putting on a clinic. 4 good reps.
He's lifted this stone 8 times total. The second place man ever to ever lift this stone's only done it once, and this is something that he's just got this event down.
Just a few more seconds to go. Kaliszkowski has time for one more attempt and possibly break his own record. This would be his 5th good rep. Kaliszkowski has a new record, 5 reps with the Oudhaugen tombstone.
Wow.
Incredible.
This young man's been dreaming about this night in front of the big crowd, getting to show what he is best at, shouldering a massive stone.
Unbelievable for Maciej Kaliszewski, who last year had 4 good repetitions. That was a record. 1 year later, he beats it by a full rep.
So he gets his hands under the stone. He pushes his feet down and lets his upper body stay pretty quiet and gets it up to his lap. Gets it up. That he doesn't even really put it to his chest. He just puts it right up onto his shoulder.
Kaliszewski looking for his second straight first-place finish in an event. We knew the events early on, like the deadlift, didn't favor him, but, man, these last 2 have been in his wheelhouse. $5,000 for that man, and right now he has a large lead, but he was only the 3rd man out. Now here's Rano Heinle. Heinle struggling just to bring that stone to his lap.
Well, the first thing you've got to do is read the stone correctly. Reading means that you can understand where the balance points are and get your hands under the stone. The other thing is that this is not on turf or sand or ground. This is on a pretty hard rubber mat, so you got to be careful with your hands not to allow them to get under that stone and get pinned against that mat. So a little bit of a gamble when you get your hands under that stone and this surface.
Heinle a little frustrated after that last attempt after it slipped out of his hands. Remember, it is 1 point to get it to your lap, 2 points to get it to your torso.
He got it to his high chest last year, I believe, and kind of struggling here because he was quite good at it last year for his first time seeing the stone. But also last year, this wasn't the last event.
Kaliszewski Heinle having all kinds of problems, and he's going to call it and walk off. No reps, no points for Rano Heinle. And he quickly exits, and Mikhail Shivlikov will be up next.
This really shows the human drama that goes into athletics, and particularly with strongman. You can see that he was somewhat disappointed with that performance.
Well, if you're Martins Licis, you're hoping some of your fellow competitors can rack up some scores, because not only does Licis need to win this event, he's going to need to get some people to beat the mountain in the process as well. If Hathor Bjornsson, as you take a look at what Mikhail Shivlikov has done during this competition, if Hathor Bjornsson finishes 6th or better, he clinches.
Yes, and so that was a very important result for Rhino because he did not get the stone off and did not score 1 point. So if 1 or 2 other athletes do not get the stone off the ground, Hathor even laps it, he scores a point, and that could put him in a position to actually just claim this. But I know that Hathor's been training with shouldering stones, and he wants to get this up several times.
But first, it's this man, Mikhail Shivlikov, out of Russia, the Siberian Force, 2.5 minutes with that 409-pound, 186-kilo stone.
He was able to get a shoulder attempt he was able to shoulder the stone last year. Really struggling to get his grip. He's got the read on it, he feels like, because he can tell he's pretty confident where he needs to pull on that stone.
Shivlikov now for his second attempt. Decides to turn it and take a different approach now.
There are no edges in that left hand. See how that's all smooth? There are no edges on that.
Having trouble finding his grip.
And unlike an Atlas stone where you can tack up or get your forearms more engaged in the stone, this is really all in your hands.
And an Atlas stone is perfectly round. Very easy to read that type of object.
Yes, and it's also made to be lifted. This stone was not made to be lifted. Stones are defiant. That's the difference between objects that are made to be lifted.
And now Shivlikov is done, and that really now puts the pressure on Martins Licis.
Yeah, so
he has got to beat Maciej Kaliszewski's mark of 5, or at least tie it if he wants any chance to beat Hathor.
Yes. But it would also take Hathor, I think, pretty much not even getting it off the ground.
So Licis watching his chances sort of fade away here, but he's still going after this thing.
Off the ground pretty quickly. He had a good read on that stone. He had the hand strength to get it up. Exact same technique. Now, I remind you that he trains with Ode Haugen, and this is the Ode Haugen stone. He has seen this stone before. He has trained this stone before.
Lisi's with one good rep so far. The mark to beat in this event is 5, and that is a record. So if Lisi's is able to shoulder this thing 6 times, $5,000.
More importantly, he'll gain points in the competition. I think that's what he's really after.
And that is 2 for Martins Lisi's. And now the stone is off the stage. So this is going to be an issue, and I think that's the first time this has ever happened.
I think they're really going to probably, if there was a clock to be stopped.
Lisi's now is waiting. We don't know if they've stopped the clock. But you would think they would. As now basically everybody in a blue Rogue shirt, all the members of the crew are to come out here and try to haul this thing back up to the stage. They have a net with which to do it. You see it there. And now the stone is back to where Lisi's can get started again.
And they're doing it quickly because they've stopped the clock. Jan Todd on the stage, Dr. Jan Todd, to say, okay, we've stopped the clock, but they want to do it quickly so that it doesn't get too much rest and it affects the event itself.
So Lisi's grip now starting to slip. He has 2 good reps. Remember, the mark to beat is 5. That was done earlier by Maciusz Kieliszkowski, and that's a record. Lisi's with that stone back to his lap, so this will be a point if he can't get any more repetitions. And that will be 2 as he got it to his torso.
He says he's done.
And it looks like Lisi's is calling it.
He's got another
He's
minute.
saying he is done. But they're trying to convince him to stay on. He does have plenty of time. But Lisi's might just feel like he doesn't have anything left in the tank. Thanking the crowd. And with that, this final athlete.
So he really got it to his lap quickly. And then the second phase of this, he got it up to his chest quickly. And then push with his hips upward, just enough force to get it up onto his shoulder. And it's also a balance. You have to be able to balance and control the stone.
So one athlete remains, as Brian Shaw is not going to make an attempt. He and Jerry Pritchett and J.F. Carone don't make it to the final event. Carone had to withdraw after the first event. This is basically now a coronation for that man. Hafthor Bjornsson looking at his second consecutive Arnold Strongman Championship. Tied for first in the last event, won the first 2 on Friday, and then a second place by just 6 inches in the Wheel of Pain, and this is his first attempt.
So just to reiterate, he's an Icelander. Lots of stones there. He's got a tattoo on his calf of Jan Paul Sigmarsson with a stone on his shoulder. This is for pride. He's left-handed. He's going to go to his left shoulder.
That'll be 2 points as he has it to his torso, now trying to work it to his shoulder. Bjornsson trying to find the balance point. Extends his arm, and that will be 1 good rep.
That ties him for second. That's it.
Is going to do it. And now it's about putting on a show for the crowd. Taking a victory lap. May not make another attempt. And Hafthor Bjornsson once again, he is the mountain among men. He is your 2019 Arnold Strongman Classic Champion.
He does it to his left shoulder, which is a little bit different than going to the right shoulder, the way the stone is shaped. So he did have to struggle a bit more. He got it rested against his face, put his hand out, back down.
And then the celebration. 2 straight years, that man has stood above all other strongmen. Hafthor Julius Bjornsson, your 2019 Arnold Strongman Classic Champion, and the first man to do it in back-to-back years since Derek Poundstone did it in 2009 and 2010.
Now it's time to recognize a
Unbelievable performance for Hafthor Bjornsson. We knew he was the favorite coming in. We thought it would be Brian Shaw, who was the man who would push him for the lead. Shaw, the 2017 champion, the man who finished second in 2018. But Shaw was pretty banged up, never really a factor in the competition, and Hafthor Bjornsson is your champion.
Hafthor stands atop the strongman world, and I think that we're going to see more dominant performances to come.
Winners are Doctors Terry and Jan Todd, who together and individually made enormous contributions to the world of fitness and strength. They raised the public's understanding of the value of all forms of strength training through their personal lifting accomplishments, their books, numerous articles, and documentary films, as well as all they have done to preserve the history of strength sports. Dr. Terry Todd began as a tennis player, earning a college scholarship to play for UT Austin. In the summer after his high school graduation, he began training and then kept lifting in secret as he also played varsity tennis at UT. Although he was ranked number 1 on the team by the end of his freshman year, his tennis coach kept telling Terry that lifting would make him muscle-bound, and so Terry quit the team in his junior year and focused his energy on competitive weightlifting. Terry won the Junior National Olympic Weightlifting Championship in 1963 and then switched to the new sport of powerlifting, winning the first men's national championships in 1964 and the first senior nationals in 1965. Over the course of his career, he would go on to set 15 world records in powerlifting and was the first to officially squat 700 pounds and to total 1,600, 1,700, 1,800, and 1,900 pounds. Terry was also one of the first people to write about the sport of powerlifting, and his insightful, dramatic articles in the Muscle magazines and later Sports Illustrated helped powerlifting develop its unique identity as a sport. In 1978, he also wrote the sport's first book, Inside Powerlifting, and in its introduction, the great powerlifter Larry Pacifico described Terry as an immortal in powerlifting, who stands on the elite plateau reserved for legends. He has been, wrote Larry, our guiding light and inspiration since powerlifting began. After finishing his PhD in 1966 with a dissertation on the history of weight training, Terry began teaching as a university professor while continuing to work as a journalist and sports promoter. In addition to his work for Sports Illustrated, Terry served as a broadcaster for both NBC and CBS, was involved in the early days of the World's Strongest Man contest, created and promoted the Strongest Man in Football contest for CBS for 3 years, and also opened the National Strength Research Center at Auburn University. Terry married Jan in 1973 after meeting her at Mercer University in Macon, Georgia. When Jan began weight training following their marriage, there were no women's powerlifting contests, no women's weightlifting contests, and no women's bodybuilding. However, she was intrigued by strength, and with coaching from Terry, decided to see if she could get in the Guinness Book of Records, as those were the only records that existed for women at that time. When Jan deadlifted 394.5 pounds in 1974 and made it into Guinness for the first time, she made that lift and the next several records that followed it only after getting permission to do exhibitions at men's meets, exhibitions that inspired other women to ask for the right to compete. She remained in the Guinness Book for the next 12 years, having set more than 60 world or American records in 5 bodyweight classes by the time she retired to begin her PhD studies. She was the first woman to total more than 1,000, 1,100, and 1,200 pounds, and her highest records set back in 1981 were 480 pounds in the deadlift, 545.5 pounds in the squat, and 1,229 pounds in the total. Often called the world's strongest woman in newspapers and magazines like Sports Illustrated and People, Jan also appeared on dozens of television shows during her lifting career, including Johnny Carson's Tonight Show.
Welcome, please, Jan Todd.
Powerlifting is a relatively new sport. There's only been men's competitions for about the last 15 years. The women's competitions are just getting started.
Jan also made significant contributions to the early development of women's powerlifting, writing the first draft of its rules, serving as head of both the American and International Women's Committees, and twice serving as national coach. She was also twice chosen as coach of the USPF men's team, making her the first woman to coach a men's team at a world championship in any strength sport. In 1978, Jan also became the first woman to lift the famous Denny Stones in Scotland, a feat no other woman would master for 40 years. In 1983, the Todds moved to Austin, Texas, where they began teaching at the University of Texas and began focusing more on encouraging academic interest on the history of the iron game. Their work has allowed the study of strongmen, weightlifting, bodybuilding, strength coaching, and other related fitness fields to become part of the academic canon for kinesiology departments and the field of sport history. They began publishing the highly influential academic journal Iron Game History, the Journal of Physical Culture, in 1990. And together they've written more than 600 articles and 7 books on strength training and/or strength history. Jan Todd, now a full professor at UT Austin, is recognized as one of the most important sports historians in the world and runs a doctoral program focusing on the history of fitness and strength training that she created. The Todds' encyclopedic knowledge of history of the iron game also led them to begin making documentary films with Rogue Fitness about early legends like Eugen Sandow and George Hackenschmidt, and longer, critically successful films like Stoneland and Fulsnicker, which can now be seen on Netflix and other media platforms. Perhaps the Todds' greatest achievement, however, has been establishing the Stark Center for Physical Culture and Sports to hold their vast collection of weight training materials and to make it available to the public. Located in a 30,000 square foot facility in the UT football stadium, the center contains more than 40,000 books, nearly every muscle magazine published in the English language, thousands of photographs, rare strongman posters from the turn of the 20th century, antique dumbbells and barbells, and artifacts and personal papers from dozens of important figures in our field, such as Louis Cyr, Warren Lincoln Travis, Joe and Betty Weeder, Pudgy Stockton, Eugen Sandow, Bob Hoffman, Tommy Kono, George Jowett, Chris Dickerson, Dr. Bob Goldman, Milo Steenborn, George Hackenschmidt, and many others. And last but certainly not least, in 2002, when Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jim Lorimer asked Terry to create a strongman contest for the Arnold Sports Festival, no one could have foreseen that he would come up with ideas that would totally transform the sport. The Arnold Strongman Classic, Terry envisioned, is the best test of true strength in the world of strongmen and is widely regarded as the most important contest in the sport. Jan co-directed the event with Terry until his death this past summer, and she took over the reins this year to make sure that the show continues as a fitting legacy to Terry and his vision. We congratulate Drs. Terry and Jan Todd on the lifetime dedicated to success in the world of fitness and strength. We are proud to honor both as the Lifetime Achievement Award recipients of 2019.
And join me in congratulating the recipient of this year's Lifetime Achievement Award, Jan Todd, and the award to be presented by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Well, every year we hand out this Arnold Schwarzenegger Lifetime Achievement Award, and we are so happy and so proud to hand it this year to Jan and to Terry Todd. Because as you have seen in that video, there is no one that has done more to promote the sport of powerlifting, weightlifting, bodybuilding, and strongman competition than this couple did. And it is absolutely extraordinary the kind of work that they've done to publicize, to promote it around the world. And so you have been really welcome to our family of the Arnold Achievement Award. Okay, so congratulations for the great work.
Thank you. You're actually going to hold that for me? That is awfully nice.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the kind welcome. Thank you, obviously, to Arnold and Jim and Bob Lorimer for doing this for us. This is obviously what I would have to say a somewhat bittersweet moment for me. The honor and pride that I feel tonight is, of course, tempered by the fact that Terry is not here to stand beside me. He should be. I think it would not be wrong to say that I think in many ways kind of, to me, an extraordinary life that we lived together and the various things that we accomplished, these were almost all inspired by the fact that Terry had what I would always refer to as a rather overactive imagination. Jim Lorimer and I used to talk about the fact that Terry was a visionary, and we would actually sort of joke about that. And as Jim knows, my job, Terry would think up the big ideas, and then my job was generally to come along behind him and kind of figure out how can we make these things work. And this was sometimes not always easy for me because Terry had no shortage of visions. And a lot of time those visions came one after another, sort of like somebody else I know who's kind of standing right behind me here. And all of a sudden, you're tackling kind of multiple things simultaneously. Somehow, however, we were lucky in being able to make many of those dreams, many of his dreams, which of course became my dreams, somehow became real. And as those of you know who knew him personally, he was really quite extraordinary. Funny and witty and bright and compassionate. And there was nothing that he loved more than thinking about strength and talking about strength and being around the strongest people in the world. When I married Terry Todd 45 years ago, I could never have imagined a future at that time, this was 1973, in which I would one day be standing on a stage. Think about this. I'm standing on a stage with a former Mr. Olympia, who has also become the governor of California, and now he has become the champion for the environment, for voting rights, and for children. Our world has changed in our lifetimes, and nor could I have imagined that I would live in a world in which women would be able to lift a 165-pound dumbbell over their head, not just once, but twice. And we didn't have one woman do that today on the stage of the Expo Hall. We had two. And I certainly could not, at the age of 21, having grown up in the era before Title IX, when weight training was largely shunned by everybody, not just women, and when women like myself went to high schools and universities where we didn't play women's sports pretty much at all, let alone do weightlifting or bodybuilding, nor could I have imagined coming out of that early part of my life that I would one day count among my closest friends those noble giants who just competed on this stage. Men whose strength and courage inspires me to come back here year after year, even though, as you might imagine, most of my academic friends at the University of Texas don't really understand why I do this. But Terry did. Terry loved the fact that Jim Lorimer and Arnold had faith in his judgment and that they had given him a truly rare opportunity to create this unique contest, which we all know as the Arnold Classic. It is probably better to let others say whether this event has truly changed the world of strength, but I would note that if the social media is any indication of things this weekend, and no doubt Snapchatting is helping a little bit with this, it has at least created considerable excitement and interest in the sport of strongmen, and based on what I'm reading online, a lot of people have been very inspired by what happened here in Columbus. When this part of our life began and we did our first Arnold Classic in 2002, It obviously, and it wasn't a perfect success, but over the years we tried to live up to the model that Jim and Arnold embraced for themselves. And every year we tried to find ways to make it better. My aim, as I took on the task of directing the show this year, was to once again try to make the show unique and special. And I've been very lucky to have had working with me not only Steve Slater as my co-director, and his, of course, incredible stage crew, but all of the judges who have been so loyal to us through the years, and of course, most importantly, a truly incredible couple, Bill and Katie Henniger of Rogue Fitness, whose dedication to making our Strongmen event special, and most importantly, for being my sounding board for ideas and events, has literally known no limits this year. I think if you saw it today, the building of the incredible Wheel of Pain, the recreation of the Husafell stone. Did you realize that they actually flew basalt all the way from Iceland so we could carve it and make an exact replica? No one else that I can imagine would have possibly done something so extraordinary for a simple strongman contest, except Rogue and the Hennigers. And I want to just say how very, very grateful I am to them, because they have allowed us to do something, I think, quite wonderful. And so in closing, let me just simply say how grateful I am to all of you for this great honor, to Arnold and to Jim and to Bob. And I want to, once again, or maybe I should say one last time, give Terry a chance to have the last words. I want to close with something that he used to say to me sometimes at the end of a long day, or when we'd had something that maybe wasn't going quite right, and you're sort of looking at each other as you're getting ready to go to bed, and you're wondering, why do we do this? And he would sometimes say to me, it's a good life if you don't weaken. And he never did. And neither should you. And so I thank you again. I am deeply honored, and I hope to see you all again next year.
Thank you, Jan. Can we ask you and Arnold to move out into the center with your award? And we're going to ask all of our former champions to join in for a photograph. If you go to the middle of the stage now, and welcome back all of our former champions, Mark Henry. There we go. Mark Henry, Zydrunas Savickas, Derek Poundstone, Brian Shaw, Vitalis Lalas, and Hep for Julius Bjornsson. And this award and photograph is in honor of Terry Todd and respect to Jan and Terry. Put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for all of our former champions with Arnold and Jan Todd. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, Mark Henry, I need you back over here. Mark, back to work. Let's welcome back Mark Henry and Matt Eisman for our Strongman Awards. Thank you, Matt.
How about that contest we saw with the Strongmen tonight, ladies and gentlemen? That was the final event.
Here are your final standings for the 2019 Arnold Strongman Classic. Hafthor Bjornsson with 45 points, beating Martins Lisis, who finished second. Maciej Kielowski, his best career finish thanks to that record-breaking performance in that final event, will finish in third place. Hafthor Bjornsson with his second straight championship, and Bill, looks like he has the potential to possibly be one of the best of all time.
Absolutely. He's in a place where he can actually have a time where he has stood behind Brian and Zydrunas patiently, and now he's going to move into a time of dominance, which we will talk about in history, because he's a two-time in a row Arnold Strongman Classic Champion, which is only the second time that's been done, and he'll go into the rest of the season with a lot of other major championships to win.
Let's send it back down to the floor, Matt Eisman and Mark Henry, for the rest of the awards ceremony.
eighth place, receiving a check for $4,000 from Metrex, Taylor Creed will be presenting it.
We'd like to say that it's not just the injuries that colored the end of the competition, but it was really the ability of Martins Lisic's to come on really strong and to finish in such a convincing fashion. He gets the momentum through the competition and keeps coming.
The three men who are on the stage right now all had to withdraw early because of injuries. Brian Shaw has really been beat up the entire weekend. J.F. Caron, who's on the left of your screen, withdrew after the first event after re-aggravating a hamstring injury that he's been dealing with all season long. And Jerry Pritchett withdrew for the final event as well. As Alexei Novikov is now coming out. And he was another man who dealt with some medical issues. He was cleared by the staff, was able to return, and really impressed with the way he carried himself this weekend.
Yes, he missed an event and still places this high in the competition. Very, very promising career. I think after the first couple of events, that we were really impressed with him.
And that is Ronno Heinle.
Finishing in the middle as much as he did last year, but with some very convincing lifting.
Last year he was in 8th place. This year he is in 6th. Mateusz Belshak next out.
Mateusz has got to be extremely pleased with his performance. He's a young athlete, and he's got several more years to continue to develop. Love to see him keep coming on like this.
Another man who improved on his result from last year's 6th in 2018. 5th here now in 2019.
As you look at this group, their focus is going to be about getting back here, maybe redeeming themselves or continuing this their performance of this year.
Mikhail Shivlikov will take 4th place in his 3rd career appearance at the Arnold Strongman Classic here in Columbus, Ohio, 5th in 2017 and then 3rd last year. And giving the crowd one final salute and a thank you, and picking up his 4th place award check. Mateusz Kieliszkowski. What an impressive performance in the final event. A record-breaking 5 times he brings that Ode Haugen tombstone from the ground to his shoulder. He picked up $5,000 for that. He gets more prize money for finishing 3rd. His best career finish here. He matches it. He finished 3rd also in 2015. And then he was 4th 3 straight times after that. So back in the top 3 for the young man from Poland. And now in 2nd place, Martins Lisic's. At the beginning of the competition, Bill, you said he could be a bit of an X factor here, and he indeed was in contention until the final event and taking 2nd place.
Yes, very, very terrific. He was persistent. I think instead of being called the Dragon, he should be called the Nightmare, because this guy will not go away, and he keeps coming back.
Finished tied for 1st in the Austrian Oak event. That was the 4th event, and won the Wheel of Pain.
Well, we talked about in that Santa Monica, these 2 young men were the future of strongman. Here they are in 2nd and 3rd.
But the man who is the present of strongman, and a dominant performance all weekend long, his 2nd straight Arnold Strongman Classic Championship, Hafthor Bjornsson. And once again, Bill, this man is just starting to hit his stride. He started showing up here in 2012, but since 2017 he has been in the top 2, and now his 2nd straight title.
Well, just my monitoring strongman and watching it very closely for a number of years, he set up where Mariusz Pucanowski was to have a run to be very dominant for several more years.
Arnold Schwarzenegger presenting him with the trophy for winning this competition in his 8th straight appearance and his 2nd career championship.
The Louis Cyr Trophy.
And that would have been the tiebreak. The Louis Cyr dumbbell would have been the tiebreak event had we been tied atop the overall scoreboard in points. Once again, here are your final standings. Hafthor Julius Bjornsson, 45 points to win the 2019 Arnold Strongman Classic. Martins Lisic's will finish in 2nd place, and Mateusz Kieliszkowski matching his best career finish as he takes 3rd. Quite a weekend for that man. It started with a record 1,045 pounds on the elephant bar deadlift, and the momentum carried through. Martins Licis was impressive, the only man to edge out Hafthor in the Wheel of Pain, and then a four-way tie for first place in the Austrian Oak. But when we got to the stone to shoulder, that is where Hafthor Bjornsson put the finishing touches on his second straight championship. Thanks for being with us here all weekend, everybody. For Dr. Bill Crawford and our entire crew here in Columbus, Ohio, I am Sean Woodland. The road to the 2020 Arnold Strongman Classic begins now.